Chike always believed that the hardest thing a man could ever face was poverty. Growing up as the last son in a family where his father died early and his mother struggled with petty trading, he learned early how to survive. But he later discovered there were heavier things a man could carry on his chest. There were wounds that no doctor could stitch, secrets that could break bone, betrayals that could turn a man to something else entirely. By the time the truth hit him, he wished the problem before him was poverty, hunger, or even sickness. But life chose something deeper. Life dragged him into a kind of pain a man remembers till he draws his last breath. The story started quietly, as most storms often do. Chike met Adora on a normal Sunday morning at St. Dominic Catholic Church in Surulere. She came late for Mass, rushing in with her hair scattered lightly by the breeze and her wrapper tied in a hurry. She tried squeezing herself into the bench beside him, murmuring, "Sorry, sir," as she settled. He breathed in the faint scent of her coconut oil and something in him softened instantly. During the sign of peace, she turned. Their palms touched, and her smile flashed like morning sunlight. After Mass, he found her outside talking with her friend. She recognized him immediately and smiled again. That was how everything started. Chike was 35 then, an accountant in a transport firm, tidy, calm, focused. Adora was 28, working as a receptionist in a small hotel. She talked gently, laughed softly, and always looked at him as if he was the only person in the world. Within 6 months, he introduced her to his elder sister. Within 1 year, they were married. People said they made a perfect couple. Even Chike believed it. Adora was beautiful without trying. She was homely. She prayed. She said all the right things. She held his hands as they walked. She made him feel worth something. To him, she was a blessing sent by God to replace the father he lost, the struggles he passed through, and the loneliness he carried inside him. But even the best masquerades hide a face beneath. It didn't take long before people started whispering that Adora had an ex-boyfriend she was once crazy about. His name was Nonso, a tall, stubborn young man from her street back then in Enugu. They said the relationship was wild and dramatic, breaking and mending many times. People said their parents even tried to separate them because their love was like fire, sweet but dangerous. She never mentioned any of this to Chike. Each time he asked about her past, she simply said, "I don't like remembering those days. It was childish nonsense." Chike respected that. Every person deserves a fresh start, he told himself. But sometimes, things you bury are not done with you yet. They dig themselves out. Their first child, a boy named Ebuka, came 1 year after their marriage. Chike was overjoyed. He held the baby as if he was carrying the world in his arms. He kissed Adora with gratitude. He knelt in church, thanking God for blessing him so quickly. But something strange happened a few months later. Whenever they visited Adora's mother in Enugu, strangers on the street would look at baby Ebuka and smile in a way that didn't sit well. One woman even said, "Ah, this one resembles someone I know." Adora quickly laughed and dragged the baby away. Chike didn't take it seriously then. When their second child, Chidinma, came 2 years later, the whispers got louder. This time, an elderly man in Adora's street stared at the girl and said, "Hmm, life can be funny. Some people don't escape destiny." Adora's mother pulled the man aside, warning him to mind his mouth. Chike asked about it later, but Adora brushed it off with a joke. Marriage teaches many things, including how to ignore strange behavior. That was what he did. He didn't want to be the kind of man who doubted his wife every time someone breathed differently. Trust, he believed, should have no cracks. But trust is like glass. When it finally cracks, you will wonder how you didn't hear the sound earlier. The real trouble began after the birth of their third child, little Amarachi. 3 weeks after the naming ceremony, Adora became unusually withdrawn. She would lock herself in the bathroom for long, pretending to be bathing, She whispered on the phone late at night. She snapped easily. She avoided looking at him in the eyes. That tender love in her voice suddenly became something else. Polite, but far away. Like she was speaking to a neighbor, not a husband. One evening, as she betted the baby, her phone rang on the bed. The caller ID flashed. And nothing more, just a single letter. He ignored it. When the phone rang again, he became curious. He had promised himself never to snoop around her phone, so he didn't pick it. But when the phone rang the third time and she didn't come out quickly, he walked into the bedroom and asked her, "Your phone is ringing. Someone saved as N. Should I bring it?" She panicked. She jumped like someone who was caught stealing. "Don't touch it," she snapped. Chike froze. There is a kind of tone in a woman's voice that a man doesn't forget. He felt it. He felt something slip from his heart. Something small. Something important. It was the first crack. That night, after she slept, he sat alone in the sitting room thinking. The children were sleeping peacefully. The room was quiet, but inside his head, something was making noise. He shook it off, convincing himself not to judge her. Stress, childbirth, hormones, anything. He forced himself to sleep. But the sun always reveals what the night hides. 2 weeks later, everything fell apart. It was a Saturday morning. Adora went to the market with her cousin. Chike was cleaning the sitting room when her phone buzzed. This time, the caller ID didn't show N. It showed my only. Chike stood still. The phone buzzed again. He didn't want to answer it. His hands were shaking. His heart was tight. But something inside him, something that had been whispering quietly for months, finally pushed. He picked the call. He didn't speak. The voice on the other end did. "Ada baby, I'm outside your compound. I told you I must see you today. I can't stay without you." Chike's hand went cold. The man continued. "You and I know those children belong to me. No amount of running will change it. When are you telling him the truth? Or should I tell him myself?" The phone almost dropped from Chike's hand. He didn't hear the rest. His ears were ringing. His heart was punching his ribs like someone trying to break out of a locked room. He felt the walls moving. He felt the ground shift. He ended the call slowly and sank into the chair, staring at nothing. He didn't cry. He didn't shout. He didn't move. He just sat there, breathing like an old generator that wanted to go off. When Adora returned, she saw the phone in his hand. She knew immediately. Her eyes widened. Her face drained of color. She stood still like a goat caught in the beam of a vehicle's headlight. "Who is he?" Chike asked quietly. Adora opened her mouth, but no sound came out. "Who is he?" he repeated, his voice shaking. "Chike, please, it's not what you think. Don't lie to me," he said. Still calm, still quiet, but something in his tone made her take a step back. Tears began falling from her eyes. "Chike, I'm sorry." That was when the storm began. Her confession came out in pieces, like broken plates scattered on the floor. She had never stopped talking to her ex, even before she married Chike. She and Nonso still secretly saw each other. She claimed she broke it off completely before her wedding, but after their first child was born, she fell back into the entanglement. She insisted it wasn't serious at first, just talking, checking up, old feelings. But one thing led to another, and before she knew it, they were seeing each other in hotels. "Are you saying the children are not mine?" Chike asked in a voice that didn't sound like his own. Adora fell to her knees. "Chike, I don't know. I don't know. I'm sorry. I am so sorry." Chike staggered backward. "You don't know?" She cried harder. "I didn't plan it, I swear. I was confused. I was weak. I thought I could control it. I never wanted to hurt you, God knows." He didn't hear the rest. He walked out of the house. He didn't know where he was going. He walked like a man who had lost direction in life. Neighbors called out to him. He didn't answer. He wandered the streets for hours, thinking of all the nights he prayed for his family, thinking of all the sacrifices, thinking of how he carried Adora in the labor room, thinking of how he held each child like his own heart. When he returned late at night, the house was dark. Adora was sitting in the sitting room, her eyes swollen. She didn't dare to speak. Chike sat on the chair opposite her. Tomorrow, he said quietly, we will do a DNA test. Adora started crying again, shaking her head. Chike, please, please don't do this. He looked at her, his eyes empty. You owe me the truth. The next morning, they went to the hospital. 3 children, 3 samples, one man who felt his soul being tested by God. Adora broke down so many times that the nurses had to hold her. Chike didn't shed a single tear, not one. His face was stone. The results would take 3 weeks. Those 3 weeks felt like 3 years. Chike barely spoke. He slept in the children's room, not touching Adora. She moved around the house like a ghost. Sometimes he caught her staring at the children with guilt, so heavy it could bury her. Sometimes she broke down while cooking. Sometimes she knelt in front of him, begging him to forgive her, telling him she would cut off Nonso forever. He didn't respond. He lived like a shadow. On the day the results came, Chike dressed quietly. Adora followed him silently. At the hospital, the doctor looked at them with sad eyes. It was a look Chike would never forget. He opened the envelope. He read the first page. His hands trembled. He read the second. His vision blurred. By the time he reached the third, he couldn't breathe. All 3 children were not his. Something inside him broke loudly. Even the walls heard it. Adora screamed when she saw the results. She collapsed on the floor. She wept like someone who lost her soul. Chike stood up slowly, holding the papers. His legs were shaking, but he refused to fall. He walked out of the hospital like a man carrying his own coffin. At home, he didn't speak. He didn't shout. He didn't blame. He didn't touch the children. He sat on the floor staring at the wall for hours. Neighbors later said they had never seen a human being look so empty. That night, Adora packed her things. She carried the children, begging him to talk, but he didn't. He sat in silence, like someone who had left his body behind. After she left, Chike remained in the same spot until morning. Days passed, then weeks. He barely ate, he barely slept. His mother and siblings tried to talk to him, but he kept drifting away from reality. Everyone feared he was going mad. One evening, 3 months later, there was a knock on his door. He opened it to find Adora standing there, carrying the children. She looked sick, thinner, broken. The children clung to her. Chike, she whispered, please, I need to talk to you. He didn't say a word. She knelt again, crying. I know you hate me. I know I destroyed everything. But the children, they keep asking for you. They think you traveled. They don't understand. Chike's chest tightened. He had tried to forget the children. He told himself they weren't his. He told himself to let go. But the truth? He loved them. He raised them. He fed them. He carried them on his back. They were the only thing he was proud of. And now, he had to pretend they were nothing. Adora sobbed uncontrollably. Chike, please tell me what to do. I will do anything. Just don't abandon us completely. The children didn't offend you. Chike felt tears sting his eyes for the first time in months. He whispered, why, Adora? Why did you do this to me? Her face crumpled with shame. I was stupid. I was tied to my past. I didn't know how to say no. I thought I could control the situation. I thought the past would fade on its own. Before I knew it, everything got complicated. Chike shook his head slowly. You had 9 years to stop. 9 good years. She covered her face with her hands, weeping. Then something happened. Little Ebuka, their first child, the one he carried on his shoulder countless times, ran to him and held his leg tightly. "Daddy, please don't be angry with mommy again." The word daddy shattered him completely. He lifted the boy and hugged him so tightly. The child whimpered. Chike cried, deeply, painfully, like a man who had waited too long to release his grief. Adora cried too. The other children hugged him, confused but relieved. Nothing was solved that night. The pain didn't disappear. The betrayal didn't vanish. The wound didn't close. But something started shifting. Days turned into months. Counseling came. Family meetings came. Healing came slowly, but painfully. Chike never took Adora back as his wife, but he forgave her. He co-parented with her. He promised to always be in the children's lives because he couldn't pretend they meant nothing to him. He never loved again, not because he couldn't, but because something inside him now approached love with caution. Once in a while, he would watch the children play and remind himself that life doesn't always follow the path you planned. Sometimes, your deepest wounds come from the people you trusted the most. But he survived. He carried his scar quietly, like many Nigerian men do. He never hated the children. He never hated Adora. He simply accepted that love is not always enough to keep a person faithful, and trust is not something you gamble with. In the end, Chike rebuilt himself slowly. He remained in the children's lives forever, and though the truth changed everything, it did not destroy him. It only taught him what strength truly means, and how betrayal, once it enters a home quietly, can stay for years without making a sound until the day it decides to speak. And that was how the story ended. My dear viewers, I hope you enjoyed this story. If you watched to the end, I'm sending you a big hug and thank you for staying true. Thank you for listening to my story. I really appreciate and I do not take it for granted. My name is Zara the Crown Teller. And trust me when I say I have lots and lots of interesting stories that you would definitely love to listen and watch. All you have to do is subscribe to my channel, turn on the notifications, grab your popcorn, relax, and listen to all the stories on my channel. And trust me, you will learn one or two life moral lessons from my stories. Until I see you in my next video, bye!